Hi, this is Lee. I decided to do a video which is a little bit different than what I usually do. It's a listening experience video, which means it's going to be about an album that I heard, but it's not going to be a review. It's just going to be my assessment of the album and what I think in general, and whether or not it's good or how people should approach it. The album is called ATUM, or ATUM, by Smashing Pumpkins. It's a 3-album set. I learned about it from watching another podcast that had talked about it, but I have to say something. Smashing Pumpkins generally now, they do large albums, which means many songs. In this case, it's 33 songs. You might think, how can I listen to all of them and like all of them or experience all of them at once? My suggestion is don't do that. It's like if you're going to have 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you have breakfast at breakfast, you have lunch at lunch, and you have dinner at dinner. In the same sort of way, I listened to the first disc, which is 11 songs, and then after that I heard music by another group later. And then later I heard the second disc, and then I heard music after that from another group, and then later I heard the third disc. So it was like I heard 3 different albums, even though I knew that they were all a part of the same album. But if you do it that way, if you listen to one part and let that digest, and you let the thoughts of the album get to you, then later listen to another part and let that digest, and let that get to you how it gets to you. And then you listen to the third part. If you do it that way, it works. I have to say this. I have not heard a lot of Smashing Pumpkins. Recently I heard another album of theirs, which was a long album that I heard because I wanted to hear more stuff by them. And there's a couple of albums of their not many songs that I've heard, but overall I haven't heard much of their work. But of the stuff that I have heard, I will say ATUM is perhaps the most interesting things that I've heard of them. The reason I'm not going to get into a song by song analysis is because the album is of the type where, in my opinion, if you were to critique each song, it would be like critiquing each ingredient on some sort of food, like a pizza. Like you will critique the mushrooms, and then you critique the sauce and the cheese and the crust. And you might like individual elements better than another, but to me, it's a whole listening experience. And whether or not I like a certain song better than another song, which is the case, that doesn't mean that you'll think the same way. The thing is, if you hear all the different songs in one part and then in another and another, you will find that there are various different flavors. There are no filler songs on it. There are songs that I don't like as much as others because of my own personal opinion, but everything fit. Everything worked on the album as far as how it was meant. So here's what I'm going to say. The album has a wide variety of different styles. There are some songs that are more of one way as opposed to another. I don't even want to describe what the songs are like. If you listen to it, and that's the point, I want you to listen to it. It has different ups and downs as far as aesthetic ways about it. Some songs might be heavier, some songs might be less heavy. But the thing is, it's got a good balance. Where if you hear certain songs that are a certain way, you will then hear other songs that are another way. And it's like eating a meal. You might have some things that are not as tasty as others, but the whole meal works. I think ATUM is one of the more interesting albums that I've heard recently. I didn't follow the story. I only listened to it as an album. As to whether or not they do a production of it, I don't see whether or not that's going to help one way or the other. But as far as a listening experience, it's like a rock opera. It has 3 separate movements, 3 separate acts, and 11 movements in each act. So I've heard operas by different composers or seen them on YouTube. Why not treat it the same way? Don't think of it as though you have to eat everything at once, like, oh, it's a great big meal. Listen to a part of it, then later listen to another part and another part. That's what I suggest. And if you do that, in my opinion, everything fits. Not everything is to my liking. In fact, when it comes to songs that I really, really like, there's probably about 2 out of the 33. But out of the songs that I think are good in and of themselves, regardless of my opinion, I would say there might be 3 songs that don't really appeal to me. But they're all at least interesting. So, do I suggest you buy it? That's up to you. I'm not going to say whether or not you should buy it or not buy it. But as far as I'm concerned, if you want to hear an interesting album that's different than a lot of the other albums that are out there, listen to Smashing Pumpkins, ATUM. If you don't have streaming services, then hey, I can't judge you for that or not judge you. But if you do, listen to it. And I'd say listen to each song in the order that it's done. Listen to the first disc, then the second disc, and the third disc. And they are separated by discs. So it's up to you. You don't have to hear it, but if you feel intrigued to hear it, I would say it's worth hearing. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye.